in the first place, as we ask the musician to introduce themselves, but the way you would like to be introduced. How should I introduce this guy I got on video here?
Well, hell, I don't know. That's your job, man. Wolf Hoffmann, the guitar player for Accept since the Stone Age.
Yeah, I guess.
I feel like you can introduce me as the last of the dinosaurs.
Oh, great, great. I guess it was 1979, maybe. When
I
Accept
joined in
started.
'76, believe it or not.
Yeah,
Accept got started a little before me, but I joined in '76. Yeah.
it's a long and glorious history for the band and all of you, but you had some hard times too.
Sure, it's not always glorious. Nothing
Yeah.
ever is. I guess if you're in the music business, nothing's ever like all the time glorious. I guess like in every other career, there's ups and downs, and we had some hard times in the beginning, then some good success in the '80s. The '90s were terrible, and now
Mhm.
everything is great again. So it goes ups and downs, you know.
Yeah, because 1988, Udo left the band, and then came this guy, David Reese, replaced him.
Yeah, yeah.
You record Eat the Hit, 1988, 1989. And then the band broke up. What do you remember about that time?
That was a sucky time. The '90s were pretty terrible, you know. To make it short, I mean, I've talked about this so many times, and I don't even like thinking about it much because it was just one of many, many things that happened along the career. But basically, to sum it up, we made a record with David Reese, and we never had the good chemistry, and the times were hard. It was the wrong album at the wrong time, and then the band basically just broke up after that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's as simple as that. It just wasn't meant to be. It was one of those things that you try. Everybody had great intentions. We had some good ideas, but it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. And
you know what's interesting? Let me tell you this. What's interesting also about every album, you need to see it in the context of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if we would have released this album 5 years earlier or 5 years later or 10 years later, it would have been all different. But at that point, it was the wrong thing. You know, there's always timing, wrong place, right time, right place. And just the opposite happened in 2009 when we met Mark Tornillo as a new singer, and we met Andy Sneap, and everything basically fell in place. It was almost like the stars aligned properly. And with David Reese, nothing aligned. It was just not meant to be.
Yeah, because talking about music, the '90s was, I don't know how was it there in Europe, but here it was terrible with all this grunge and alternative. Yeah. There was no place for heavy metal here, at least here. It was really hard time. I don't know how was it there.
The same thing. We basically felt like lost. Nobody knew where the music would turn, and nobody knew where the music direction, what people wanted to hear. I know we didn't feel comfortable with grunge and alternative. That wasn't really our thing. We tried to adjust a little bit to the times, and basically all these metal bands that I'm familiar with, they all struggled. Everybody was like, nobody quite knew what kind of songs to release, or we all didn't think if heavy metal was ever going to come back or would survive, or what the new, you know, I personally, I thought heavy metal is dead. In the '90s, I thought, okay, it's over. I thought we had a nice time in the '80s and it was great, but I thought heavy metal will never come back. But to my big surprise, it's back stronger than ever, and it's still here.
And it seems to be that grunge is no longer
here. Yeah, but the opposite happened. Grunge just disappeared, basically, you know. So it's strange, isn't it? But, you know.
Yeah. Well, and then on 19 Steel, Udo came back. I think there were 3 albums. Then he left the band again. And then 29, I guess it was, when you found Mark Tornillo. I don't know how things happened, just the way you were saying a few minutes ago, but it was incredible. all things took their respective places, it seems, and the result were, at least for me and for a lot of people, was something incredible. Did you ever think that this comeback would be so great?
I didn't think about it at all, to be honest. I just know, I just remember when we met Mark, we thought this has to work because it feels right. You know, deep in our gut feeling is we said this feels perfect. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to give it one more try. And if this doesn't work with Mark, I'm just going to give up forever. But I was really convinced that it would work, but to what extent, I almost didn't care. I just felt I want to do this because we want to write some new songs. We want to go back out on tour again. And I almost didn't care if the audience would like it or not, because I felt this, we have to do this for our own peace of mind, almost, you know, because we felt the fire. Peter and I, we both felt like we have lots of energies, lots of songs to write. And so we felt like we have to make this album no matter what. And we almost didn't care whether the audience would like it, but I was deeply convinced they would, you know.
You know, I must confess, I'm a Accept fan since the caveman, and
Yeah.
I was not I was not expecting so much about this
Yeah.
reunion.
Nobody
And
was. Everybody was very critical when we announced the fact that we're coming back, and we told the world, hey, we found a new singer. Everybody was basically doing this
and then
because they
that
didn't think it was possible. Yeah,
and
because it's one of the hardest things in the world to do is to change lead singers. We all
yeah,
know that because it
yeah,
never
yeah,
works, hardly ever.
yeah.
I think except is one of a handful of people where it did work, like Van Halen being one, and maybe Black
Hmm.
Sabbath. But there's not many bands where the lead singer gets changed and it actually works better,
Yeah,
or it works at all.
and it was incredible albums. We got Blood of the Nation, Stalingrad, and the Blind Rage, The Race of Chaos, and the last one, Too Mean to Die.
Hmm.
When you look at those five albums, can you believe the things you did so many years after?
No, I cannot, and sometimes I have to pinch myself because right now we're on tour in Germany. And we've done maybe 27 shows already, and they're all almost sold out. A lot of them have been sold out, and the fans love the music. We play 5 new songs of the new album. We play a lot of stuff from these last 10 years with Mark Tonillo, and it's the band is on fire. We're sounding better than ever. We're feeling better than ever. And this is 46 years after I joined the band. It's incredible.
When Mike joined the band, what did you ask him? I guess you must have tell him something. What did you expect from him? What did you ask him?
I asked him not to read the comments online. Because I tell you what, and I tell this to everybody who joins the band, you know, when you step into this place and this band has been around with a long history, there's a lot of fans that have certain expectations, and they're never gonna be satisfied
Hmm.
because it's not the original. So
Yeah.
to step into an existing position like that is very um, or can be very demoralizing, because no matter what you do, you're always going to be the new guy to some
Hmm.
people. You know, there's some diehard fans that never going to
Uh-huh.
accept, they're never going to be happy with anything you
Yeah.
do unless you're the original. But you know,
Yeah.
that's not just it goes with any band that has new members.
Yeah.
So my advice is to always forget about the comments, just do your job and enjoy life, and don't drive yourself crazy, because there's always going to be some people that are going to be unhappy just because you're not the original guy. But fuck it, man, life
Yeah.
goes on, and you can enjoy life, and we're having a fantastic time because there's enough people out there who do like the new version, and that's great.
And at least here, I don't know how is it there, but I think maybe it happens the same. There's strange phenomena when fans they become kind of owner of the band.
Yeah.
They say, let's talk about another band. Let's say Sepultura. The real Sepultura is, and they name the records they like, and the band is real as long as they do that things that I like. I'm more owner of the band than the band members themselves.
I know, but it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, we're not, all we want to do is just play some music, and if the one version isn't available, then here's another version that it's that or nothing. So what would you rather have? Nothing, if the original isn't around anymore. And in some cases, people are already dead and they're still saying, well, it's not the original. Well, hello, what do you want?
and even bands with the same members used to change, evolve the music. You won't do the same things that you were doing 30 years ago. It's logical. The band evolved in their style. Talking about the style, because Accept is main influence for bands, speed metal bands, thrash metal, power metal.
Right.
How would you describe Accept style?
Well, that's always a tough one, but I would say our main influences. I usually try to say it like this: we're a cross between Deep Purple, Judas Priest, and AC/DC. Somewhere in between, those are our main influences. We've got a little component of all these bands, I would think.
Yeah, and every now and then appears some classical element on.
Oh, of course, there was. Of course, some classical influences there as well. Absolutely, I've done that ever since without even knowing it. Some of the songs that I wrote, or we all wrote, and I was part of back in the '80s, that have some classical reminiscence in them. And it's just the part of us and me.
Yeah. I read somewhere that you're not a classical trained musician. Is it true?
That's true. Yeah. I like classical music just from the sidelines. Basically, I'm not classically trained. I'm not very well informed. I like certain aspects of it. I like the sound of it. I like how an orchestra sounds. I like some of the classical compositions. But I'm by no means an expert on anything. I'm not really very deep into it. I'm just sort of a fan, basically, if you want.
It's incredible.
I pay tribute to some of this stuff, but I'm not classically trained at all. No.
For me, it was a real surprise. You got 2 solo albums with plenty of classical elements, and I always thought you were a classical student, we could say.
No, I'm a metal guitar player who just likes classical music. It's not the other way around.
It's incredible.
First and foremost, my roots is, I grew up listening or playing heavy metal, but I discovered classical music somewhat later in life, or rediscovered it later in life a little bit. When it was maybe early 20s or so, I thought like, oh, some of this Tchaikovsky stuff is really cool. And what would it sound like if we could maybe do this Beethoven 4 Elise? How would that sound if I maybe just use that in one of our songs? And ever since, I've been sort of messing with that whole idea.
You're going to be in Argentina. Please, what would you say to Argentine fans? Why should they go to see Accept show?
Man, because we have a long history with Argentina. We've been there many times. We love the Argentinian fans, and from what I can tell, they love Accept. I love the fact how passionate they are. I love how they're excited before we even go on stage. I love how they sing along during the concert. So I'm sure the same is going to happen again when we play there, and I can't wait to be back there in April.
Great.
So
great.
This is saying hello from a distance. So please, I hope to see you all again.
Thank you very much, man. I leave you alone. Go on with your life, and all the best.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you.
Great.